We're also going to make sure that we gather up the facts and hold accountable and responsible anybody who was involved in this.
That was the president just about a month ago promising a full investigation into the IRS's targeting of Tea Party and conservative groups. Remember, there's been a whole back and forth about whether we need a special counsel to investigate this or a special prosecutor or whether the administration can handle it. Well, the president said the administration can handle it. Yesterday, Congress had a chance to ask the FBI director, they're the ones supposed to be handling it, how the investigation's going. Here's a little of what we saw.
Based on everything I've seen, quoting Mr. Cummings, the case is solved. This is regarding the IRS scandal.
Which case?
The IRS scandal.
The IRS case?
Yeah.
You know, the IRS case is currently under investigation, and basically it's just started.
Yeah. What can you tell us? I mean, you started a month ago. What can you tell us about this? Have you found have you found the now infamous 2 rogue agents? Have you discovered who those people are?
Needless to say, because it's under investigation, I can't give out any.
Can you tell me some basics? Can you tell me how many agents, investigators you've assigned to the case?
May be able to do that, but I'd have to get back to you.
Can you tell me who the lead investigator is?
Off the top of my head, no.
This is the most important issue in front of the country the last 6 weeks. You don't know who's heading up the case? Who the lead investigator is?
At this juncture, no, I do not know who the...
Can you get that information to us? We'd like to know. We'd like to know how many people you've assigned to look into this situation.
I have not had a recent briefing on it. I had a briefing on it when we first initiated it, but I have not had a recent briefing as to where we are.
So you don't know who's leading the case?
I do not know who is the lead agent.
Do you know if you've talked to any of the victims? Have you talked to any of the groups who were targeted by their government? Have you met with any of the Tea Party folks since May 14th, 2013?
I don't know what the status of the interviews are by the team that's on it.
Well, the man asking those questions was Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, and he joins me now. Congressman, good to see you again.
Good to be with you.
And so, I mean, that instills confidence, no?
Not exactly. You got to question how serious they are about getting to the bottom of this issue. I mean, and just what I said, this is the biggest issue that the country has dealt with in the last 6 weeks. Here you have a guy with 12 years experience running the FBI. You would think, where there's an attack on people's First Amendment political speech rights, you would think a guy with that kind of experience would put his absolute best attorney, his best investigative team on this issue. And if it's his best team, you would think he would know who those individuals and who that team is, and yet he didn't know. And that's what I think causes concern with me, other members of Congress, and most importantly, the American people, because this is as serious as it gets, and we don't even know who's heading up the investigation.
What do you think really happened there? Because, I mean, obviously our FBI director has got a lot to worry about. A lot to worry about. I mean, from the Boston Marathon bombings, and the FBI is under scrutiny there, and they have to keep us safe, and there's a lot of things that Mueller needs to worry about. This is one of them, but this is sort of a post-mortem examination of bad behavior that's since been rectified, they tell us. So maybe it's not at the top of his priority list. What do you think was really going on there with respect to his ignorance?
Right, and he's a good man who's served a long time and served our country for a number of years. I understand all that, and obviously they got a lot of things they're dealing with, as you point out, what happened in Boston with the NSA issue and a host of other things. But remember, this was a fundamental violation of Americans' liberty. The government using an agency as a weapon to target people for their political beliefs. If that doesn't rise to the top of the list, or at least get near the top of the list, or at least rise to such a level of priority that the head of the FBI doesn't know who's heading the investigation, then there's a problem. And that's this administration's concern. That's the concern we have with this administration. So that's what I think troubles people. I don't know what it is. They are busy. I understand that. But this is important, and we need to make sure we have the right people investigating. And the first thing you do is talk to the people who were harmed. You talk to the victims. To my knowledge, none of the victims have been questioned about what took place.
Yeah, we talked to Jay Sekulow, attorney who's been representing a dozen or so of these groups, and he said none of his clients have been contacted by the FBI. So the victims in this case are not being contacted, and you can see from Mr. Mueller's response to your questioning why they haven't. It doesn't seem like the ball's been rolling. I went back to look. Did they make a promise? Did he admit that the investigation has begun and it is rolling and he's at the head of it? And he did. He did say all of that. Yeah. So they do have responsibility for this. I think, Congressman, this raised a lot of questions. So you saw the same thing with Benghazi. The president said, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to get all the questions answered. Who was behind it? Why? Whatever. And then there's questions about stand-down orders and so on. And here we are all this time later. We don't have the answers. And now it doesn't look like we're heading down a different path with respect to the IRS.
This investigation started 1 month ago today, May 14th, 2013. So they've had a month. You would think we would know something. You would think at least the director would know who's heading it up. And you're exactly right. The administration says we're going to get to the bottom of all these things, but they never give us any real help. Take Benghazi, like you brought up. It took us 8 months till we got a breakthrough, and that was only when we persuaded Greg Hicks to come forward and tell the story of what took place in Benghazi, in Libya that night.
Well, and I mean, Benghazi, who's been held responsible? I think it was the New York Times had the interview with the guy having the strawberry frappe, who they said was responsible, a couple months after it happened. And yet, here we are all this time later, we still have nobody. I want to ask you this, though. With respect to the IRS, because a lot of people are interested in where the accountability is on that. We reported earlier today that, indeed, this woman, Holly Paz, has been fired. Yeah. And you did ask Director Mueller about Holly Paz. It's amazing to me how these officials are so reluctant to name names and just tell you, our representatives, who's gone, why they're gone, who's been held responsible. She's been fired, but we have to get this through leaks and different reports that we can barely... Why don't they just come in and say, we fired Ms. Paz and here's why?
Yeah, if the goal is to get to the truth, which is what my goal is, which is what the goal of Chairman Issa is, if the goal is to get to the truth, help us get there. Don't put up impediments. Don't put up roadblocks. Don't make it so difficult. And frankly, Holly Paz, remember what took place with the Inspector General's audit. She sat in on almost every interview he did with potential people who were violating folks' First Amendment rights. She sat in on the interviews. That's not how you get to the truth. You can't have the supervisor, the boss, sitting in with employees when you're asking them questions about what took place. But that, in fact, happened. We've also learned that Holly Paz was the one who collected all the documents and gave them to the Inspector General. So the person you're investigating, you say, can you give me the document? That's not how things operate in a true investigation.
And now that she's been fired, it raises even more questions about her critical role in the IG's investigation. I got to run, Congressman. Thank you very much for your thoughts on it, sir.
Thank you, Megyn.
All the best.